Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the last session of the Cloud Monitoring Tuesday from Dubai. This session is the result of our discussion about the monitoring, how to use the monitoring, which options we can use in monitoring, and how we can automate the monitoring exactly. But also, we need to understand that we need to look how these modules that we build, the scripts that we build could be automated and how it could be moved to the automation platform like Azure Automation, which modules we need, which information we need, etc., to execute exactly required parts, etc. And yeah, so like definitely we will talk about this today. And I would like to say that if you miss the previous sessions about the Azure monitoring, you will find this on the Azure UAE, Azure Qatar, and Saudi Azure community pages, and also on the YouTube, my YouTube, or Microsoft YouTube with the exact links, and you can use this QR code to get the information. And my name is Igor Shestitka. You can see some roles, some positions where I work, etc. And you can always contact with me on the some additional ways, like by email or by LinkedIn. You can find me and join to my connection in LinkedIn by Igor Shestitka, or this is direct link plus my blog. It's multi-language blog, so not only English but also my native languages video blog. So on YouTube you always can find the recording of this session and another session, like for example Microsoft immersion workshops on my Azure immersion workshop on my YouTube channel. And as I mentioned before, today it's the last session, last webcast. We start from the Azure monitoring strategy, go through the tools, go through the custom language, go through the script, and right now we are planning to take all of this information together and build some solution that will help us to work with this data, to work with monitoring, etc. And we will look how we can use additional tools. The tools like Azure Automation and how to configure Azure Automation to work with Azure Log Analytics, to work with PowerShell, etc. We will look how to configure the automation and how to configure runbooks to work and in execution on behalf of managed identity to provide additional security for the system. And of course we will look on the exactly the permissions of the managed identity, how it could be executed inside the code, and after that how to use the Azure Policy to configure. Before we did the configuration of all objects, only manually go to the settings of each object and install, for example, for virtual machines agent by the portal. But we can define the Azure policy and assign this Azure policy to work exactly with a required solution, right? So like this is exactly one of the goal of our meeting today. And let's maybe start about, and again, so like to better understand from the previous step that we discussed last week, that's like when we are doing the PowerShell scripting to automate Azure monitoring, we need to be sure that we will be able to execute the scripts not from the current user, but maybe by SPN, application registration, or manage identity to have the access to the log analytics. Plus, we need to understand like how we will send the data after that by, for example, SendGrid or Office 365, and we need to have it. This experience and PowerShell, of course, we have to know these PowerShell scripts, etc. And also, from the previous meeting, we discussed the scenarios about the PowerShell itself. We review the script and we found that it's really important to know and really important to understand most like parameters like tenant ID, application registration ID, and secret in case of SPN, or application ID in case of application if we are doing this for application. Plus, we need workspace ID or workspace name to get this data, and SendGrid secret if we are planning to execute this over SendGrid. So SendGrid secret also must be configured there too. And also we discussed the script itself, that the script contains a lot of different blocks. One of the most important blocks, this is the authentication. Just a second, I will switch back to the script. And this part allows us to authenticate with manage identity, and if you know account ID, application ID, it should be passed like a parameter, for example, and system will work and will execute with this kind of identity that we provide. Or in another hand, we review it from the previous part, the second scenario when we are doing the execution over the REST API, and before we have to authenticate against this REST API by using the client ID of SPN and client secret of SPN. So this is the second scenario, and only after that we will be able to execute some commands again over the API to have the exactly result and translate this result after. So this is the main block, maybe to understand that what way is more important for us. Again, I will demonstrate today the manage identity. Why? Because manage identity more easy to manage. It's not required to have the tenant permissions. It's not required to store it somewhere or pass somehow a secret key of the application registration of the SPN, whatever you are planning to use, even if you're planning to use the key vault, etc. Anyway, so like it means that somehow these keys should be represented in the some strings, right? But in case of manage identity, you just pass the ID of this identity, and Azure Automation account, if it's configured correctly, will do the all other stuff. After that, we discuss it more deeper about the casta query strings, and again it was a lot of discussion. You can see here, or you can see here on the previous meetings, how to build the correct custom query and how to debug it, how to monitor it. After that, when we have the ready to use query, we can just easily put it on our string and add just like some elements to convert the string from the tool to string of PowerShell, like to be sure like this one, or to put some additional parameters like this one, right? Plus, we execute exactly the query anyway, or we are doing the invoke AZ operational inside query, or we are doing exactly the REST API call to log analytics by invoke web request with all required parameters. Whatever we are doing, like this one or like this one, we need to provide some workspace ID, like parameter, or like ID, or like object. You can see here we take the object, and after that we are doing the transformation of the data. And this transformation of the data, it's required to better understand the result. We discussed it last webcast about this result, how it's converted. And anyway, there is on the code that will be shared with you some options named build table, some additional function that just convert this result to the table, and you will be able to get each row like named object, because we are using this command, translate the result, exactly result of the query, not the query itself, but like a variable, but results like array, to convert it. And after that, most biggest part, it's creating the content of the email that we are planning to send to the customer, where we are building just HTML by adding to the string more like HTML commands, like a table, like a div, etc., etc. By the way, build command table, not only transform table, but also build as result the set of the rows. This is exactly how we are working, right? And after, we just send it, we generate a base 64 array if we need KSV, and after that we generate the part of the code for execution of the SendGrid. So I have some SendGrid account, and I'm building the body, and I'm building the headers for this call based on the REST API of the SendGrid tool. If you don't know, SendGrid, it's a free of charge, free to use with some limitation like 100 emails per day, free of charge, free of use, the third-party tool inside the Azure that you can use exactly to send the data, to send the emails, like for automation, etc. Not only like in alerts that you use exactly the engine of Azure to send the alerts, but this one, it could be customized by you. You see, I build the body, and after that execute REST method with the header that I built and body that I built. So like this is like a scenario, but before execute this scenario, we need to do by the way, questions. If you have some questions about the code, you can look after the previous webcast recording, or you can ask right now on the chat. You can type it. I will look time to time to the chat, how it's going and what exactly the question is there. And okay, so how to make it work, right? So to make it work, we need something that will execute this script, and this something, name it Azure Automation Accounts. Let's build the Azure Automation account here. I am doing this by why is my automation? automation. So I'm creating the automation account. Will be built where I need, will be built in West Europe because most of my environment right now in West Europe. AA monitoring demo SH001, something like this. We will use manage identity, we will use the user identities, and here we can create the new user identity. SP managed identity user assign it automation demo (001), something like this. We have no, sorry. I did not create yet. Okay, we will create it. iPlanet. Okay, just a second. Nothing. Looks like I forgot. Okay, we will assign and use the user assigned identity. We will have, for now it's a public network, whatever, and create it. It is exactly what we are looking for. Okay, so we have it. It is ready. It's our manage identity. Manage automation account, Azure automation account to execute our runbooks. We have no runbooks for now. It's okay. We have no identity for now, I think. Let's check it. So you can see that system identity turned off, user identity turned on, but we still have no user identity. Let's create this one. Let's take this same. Why the manage identity is better than SPN again? So like you always can create your manage identity user assigned manage identity. You always can create your managed identity inside your environment, inside your subscription. Use it as it's expected, and you don't need to care about the secrets. You don't need to care about the solution. ASP user assigned manage identity automation demo Igor SH001. All stuff to control the secrets, to control the manage identity, etc., will be done by Azure. We just use it and define some permissions, some parameters to work with this manage identity. So we have it. You can see like what's going on. Nothing, because it's just identity, like a user account that you can use. You can create again any user's identity or system assigned manage identity for any object in Azure if this object need to do something outside inside the Azure, outside itself, right? For example, if virtual machine need to have access to the blob, like Azure object, or to the key vault to take the keys, for example, for the encryption and take these keys, you need to create the managed identity and or assign the system identity, and after that provide the permissions. We are doing the same right now. We are going to the monitoring demo account. We are going back to the identity, and we are saying that we will use our managed identity inside solution, right? So it means that when Azure Automation will execute any of Runbook, Runbook can decide which identity will be used and authenticate with this identity and execute with this identity, right? And it means that, for example, if I provide some permissions to this identity, it will be only these permissions that's allowed to do something. In this case, so like we have it, right? It's like run as account, but Microsoft is planning to retire this run as account. You can see next year, exactly in 1 year. So it's recommended again to use the managed identity to work on it, or you can use directly SPN inside your code and do the authentication and do the connectivity after that by SPN, whatever. So we did the first part of our plan. We create the identity, we assign the user identity. After that, we need to define what will going on with this identity. For example, I would like to provide permissions for my managed identity, like a log, analytics, reader. Why not? So it means that this managed identity will be able to read it, etc. Read the logs. Oops, sorry. Why you're doing this? Read the logs for analytics. It's enough for me. I don't need to do anything more. Not like a contributor, nothing. The next one, it will be the member, and the member will be user assigned, and we have this one, like a user assigned identity. Right now, when this script will be executed, it means that the data will come, the script will authenticate itself against this identity. Let's do this way, for example. Monitoring demo, overview, where is my identity? It is client ID, it's exactly the code that we need here to execute. So look, I have this block here for authentication. Where is it? Yeah, here. And I just need to put here my ID. This ID will be, when I am doing the AZ Connect, I am asking environment of Azure Automation to authenticate me with this account ID. This account ID will be compared with the existing identity. If this identity allowed to be used by the automation, automation will switch to this context and will switch to required subscription ID on the parameters. And after that, we will be able to execute all against selected environment. Plus, because we need to do some execution for invoke, right? We exactly provide the access to the log analytics reader. It's nothing more than log analytic readers. What will happen with the SendGrid? But we are using SendGrid like invoke REST method, and we are building here the authentication on API level by SendGrid by SendGrid keys. So the SendGrid does not use the Azure authentication, just the SendGrid keys. Now you can configure it, but we are not doing this on this level. Okay, so we did the first part. This is the ready to use scenario for identity, but we also need to do a lot of stuff to be sure that our code will work in exactly expected environment. What it means? It means that here we are planning to do the 7.1 environment, and we have to be sure that all AZ modules, you see, all AZ modules will be installed as expected. And you can see that all AZ modules install it and configure it as is. So this is the second part. Why? Because our code uses these AZ modules for now. But if you are planning to use another type of the code here that's using only REST API calls, you don't need any modules to be installed. Why? Because again, Tarek, this is execution not against AZ. You will not find any AZ commands. You don't need any authentication on the Azure level. You don't need to do anything with the Azure commands, etc. You are using the pure PowerShell, and in this case it will go smoothly and execution executed only by standard commands and only by the standard REST API calls. And after that you will need to again transform the tables, convert tables, and go with it. And again, so like it's a good to know and good option when you have no control or you are limited with some parameters, etc., to configure the environment. Again, with the scenario when we are using the manage identity, we stick to or pin it to this set like manage identity, and we have to have AZ modules inside our environment. With the REST API calls, we are not doing anything about the Azure PowerShell and just execution the standard REST API commands outside the Azure PowerShell. Is it clear? Okay, if it is clear, let's switch back to our parameters. So like, as I mentioned before, Azure Automation module must be imported to the Azure Automation if we need this. Azure Automation again provides two versions, PowerShell version 5 and PowerShell version 7. You have to understand that PowerShell version 7 still on preview. I don't know why, do not ask me, but it's still on preview. And if your company policy does not allow you to use the preview version in Azure, you have to switch back to the 5.1 or 5, right? And it could be a lot of issue. For example, inside my code, I have these fixes, like just even for me, mentioned that, for example, PowerShell 5 has different version of convert to CSV than PowerShell version 7. And in PowerShell version 7 you have one command, in PowerShell version 5 you have another command. Same, for example, for some, you see, for example, counts. What's happened with counts when the object is 0? So in 7 you will have the count like a 0, but in version 5 you will have the result like a count with version with null. So this is also the could be the issue. So like when you trying to check the, for example, count, like a number of the rows in the table that's returned and you need to build, and you are trying to use this information, and in 5 it will be null if a table is empty, and you need to check it, you see, like and if count even 1, it will be like just a 1, you see. So it is strange options, right? But you need to understand this limitation and work with this limitation. After that, time zones. You can use the automation, but you need to understand that automation time zone is UTC, or but you, for example, need to have the, or again, so log analytics time zone is UTC, right? But you need to have the local time and have the reports in local time in half time, for example. And it means that you need to do, for example, this kind of translation, because I get the time and convert it to universal time, right? To have it. But after that, for example, if I need Arabian time, I have to put here the different zones in UTC, but Arabian time, etc. This is like a part of the code that allow me to be sure that it will work correctly in a right way, etc. Right? So like, and there is on the code you will find some blocks like this, again to be sure that we are on the right time, etc, etc. By the way, if you are planning to use SPN, this is the command that's required to have it, and you need to have API ID and client ID, like a password, like a parameters, if you're using SPN. So it's all about the limitation. Also, again, UTF or ASCII, end of line, new line, string issue could be the issue inside your code. And again, if we look here inside our code, where is it? Conversion. Yeah, here you see. So I'm using the Unicode to convert the code, but if you need ASCII, you will need to put here ASCII type and convert this to the ASCII type, because the new line could be the issue. I am specially adding new line to the result to be sure that result contains exactly required scenarios. right? So this is all about some possible issue or some possible scenarios, etc. If we are planning to have some charts, etc., we have to generate separate HTML attachment, then put the CSS classes inside the email body because it will be blocked. Okay, so this part I think clear. Let's build and run Runbook. How it will looks like? We know that all parameters is okay. We know that all identity is okay. We need Runbook itself here. We can create Runbook and say that it will be VM SLA report to email. Runbook type PowerShell. Not graphical, nothing. PowerShell. Version 7.1. It's okay. I don't care about this preview, blah blah blah, because it works for me. So we have our Runbook. We just copy paste it from the PowerShell, from the Visual Studio Code, and do this. Okay, we need some parameters to execute some options. What parameters we need? First of all, we need the subscription ID. We can put it, look, all like a parameters. And we will be able to execute different runbooks with different schedule, with different parameters. Why? When we start this... there is no input parameters because it's not mandatory. Okay, let's do this way. Resource group name. We need it to have the access to our workspace ID. Workspace ID itself, we need the name to have the access to this workspace ID. Subscription, we need the subscription parameter. What also we need? We need days back, days prediction, time frame, and we need send grid that it's secure value for me. It's again, so like one of the issue, but anyway, just a second. Give me a second. Hours back, days back. Okay. Okay, let's do this way. Just a second. I will switch back soon. I just put this parameter on the system. Because anyway, I need to find it. Open. Okay, I have it. I will put it here. And we are on the test option, right? We just switch our Runbook to the test option and start it. And let's see what will happen. Running. Hope there is no any errors and all keys are correct. Completed. You can see output, only one output then that you can see. It's logging into the Azure because it is here. This one. All other things, it's executions the email. And if you look on my email, I have it right now. And if I open this email, you can see SLA for 1 day for these machines. Definitely, yes, the SLA is really low. Why? Because I built this machine just before, but we are checking last 1 day, right? Because the parameter sets look for the 1 day, and the system generates this information like last of 1 day. But we can, for example, use for 1 hour, etc., to better understand like our current scenario. But anyway, the second one, detailed SLA, is going, you see, by the hours. For example, for the 12 p.m. UTC time, the SLA was 90%. So like it's like when I built this machine and started for the last hour, it is okay, and we have 90%. Like really when I start these machines. So this is the how the script works. Plus, it sent us attachment. Again, we discussed the script detailed on the previous one, and we can see SLA for the 1 day for the machine about 7%, except of 99.9. This is our part of the scenario. Right now, what we need to do, we need to execute this script for a long time, right? So we can save it, we saved it, we can publish it, we publish it. And right now we can schedule it and say that we create the link schedule every day. Every day morning, like, okay, 6 a.m., right? And we set it like start. We put it on the Dubai It will not be Dubai, it will be Abu Dhabi. Abu. United Arab Gulf time. Set time between start tomorrow 6 a.m. as planned, recurring every 1 day. We create the schedule, but it is the schedule. You can change the schedule, you can create the different schedule, etc. And after that, what I mentioned before, you can fill out all these parameters here. For example, in 6 a.m. I want to execute these options again, 1 subscription and 1 workspace. In another case, I want to execute another subscription against another one, etc., 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 etc. So all of these scenarios will be configured here, or it could be predefined. So, and I can create right now 1 schedule. For example, for another subscription, I can run the same pipeline and create another schedule with another parameters, right? So this is a schedule, and right now we need to just wait. So you see, so I add to my Runbook schedule to execute with some current parameters. Another schedule to have the execution on another time. Another schedule to have the execution with another parameters. And it will allow you to have only 1 runbook, but playing with parameters, you will be able to get the data from the different subscription, from the different workspaces of the log analytics, etc., in same time, right? So like add the schedule, execute it, add the schedule, execute it, and you will see these jobs here every time, right? So you can unlink the existing one, you can assign additional parameters, etc. It is how it works for now. So just wait and you will have these parameters after. So when you create another runbook, you will have another schedules. Plus, it is even maybe more important and more interesting that you will be able to create the webhooks. Webhooks means that you will be able to execute post command against this webhook that will be generated, and it's really important. You see that says that only 1 time URL will be available. After that, this URL will be gone. You need to copy and paste somewhere, enable this webhook, and put the parameters for this webhook, or you can send it in other parameters, and it means that you will be able to fork this runbook outside of the schedule when you need, outside of Azure, just execution by executing the post request to your system, and you always will have the free data, or you can always go inside and execute it. Questions? Okay, if there is no questions for the automation account and how to execute runbooks and how these runbooks identified, again, So most important things is just like one block that you need to understand. If you're using the Azure AZ, this one. If you are not using the Azure AZ modules, this one to execute, to log in, this one to log in here, and to execute the exactly request, just this part. To execute the request, you need to prepare some additional data like a body, blah blah blah, and after that have this OAuth data and execute like this. But do not forget that you need to have this authorization, second authorization here. So it's really important to understand, but whatever. Manage identity is the best way, and do not forget to provide the required credentials, permissions for the manage identity, manage it, etc. But to configure this, to configure the parameters, etc., to join to the log analytics, virtual machines, etc., you need to do some task. And these tasks looks like here, right? So like when you go to the demo, for example, I want to create the new virtual machine. Let's create the virtual machine. I want to create the virtual machine. Ah, 3. I want to have the Windows, this size, something like, and password. And yep, we don't need special disk, nothing here. Networking is standard, IP address okay. Oops, previous public IP. Shut down this machine at 8. Monitoring standard, etc. Let's review and create. So this is the empty machine, right? To bring this machine to the log analytics, what we have to do? We have to go to the insights, and here will be another block that allow us to configure the log analytics with performance, with maps, etc., etc. But before we need to bring it, right, and do this manually. We can do this for one machine, but if we need to do this with a lot of machines, it will be the issue. Same time, when we are talking about the another objects, like for example, I have here my log analytics itself, and I want to have the diagnostic of this log analytics. I need to go to the diagnostic settings, turn on the metrics, etc., and say that I am planning to send this data somewhere. The same way for the networking, the same way for the storage account, key vaults, any objects, backups, any objects. If we want to send this data somewhere to the log analytics, we need to do all of this stuff manually. And it is why we are talking about the policy, because policy allow us to define some steps and define some policy that all machines that will be created will be automatically joined to the log analytics. When we connect the policy to the existing subscription, it do the remediation, auto-remediate operations that allow you to reconfigure it. And again, so like there is a lot of scenarios to do this, and one of these scenarios, it's exactly to work with the Azure Policy, like a tool that allow you to configure the system. You can again control groups, location, resource types. You can control the tags. You see, you can control what exactly inside your NSG. You can enable diagnostic logs, and you can look on this exactly scenarios, etc. And most important, because we run out of time, it's dying. Deploy if not exist. So like you can start with audit policy, you can after that apply some deny policy, you can do the remediation if something wrong configured, but deploy if not exist, it's additional policies that allow you to control and configure the system. And it looks like this one, policy, and we are looking for the some definitions. Definitions, it's already pre-built policy, you see. It could be the policy or could be initiatives. Initiatives means that it is the, you see, there is, where is it? It's a set of policies, like a mix of the policy, not one policy, but many policy. And here you see the enable Azure Monitor for virtual machines. It's right now legacy, enable for virtual machine sets, etc., etc. So when we are doing the log analytics, you can see the set, and for example category will be monitoring. So this is the set of the policy that you see, deploy log analytics extension to enable on the virtual machine set, deploy the diagnostic settings for search service, deploy diagnostic settings for event hubs, etc., etc. But the legacy extension, etc., because Microsoft is changing right now, Azure Monitor log for application insights. A log analytics workspace should be block non-Azure Active Directory, etc. So, but in reality, we exactly need initiative, that's initiative, that say enable Azure Monitor. It's in preview, it's new one, but the previous one, enable Azure Monitor for VMs, but it is legacy for now. But anyway, so this is the set of the groups that will do exactly the policies that will do exactly the deployment. You see, it says that if deploy if not exist, it's configure analytics extension for Azure Arc. Deploy, configure log analytics extension to enable Windows virtual machine if not exist, right? So like this is exactly the set that we will configure, or we can try to configure one of it, or we can try to configure all of it, because it's in one shot it will be configuration of all machines, not depends of type of the virtual machines, operation system inside, etc. And we can assign it to the scope. And here it's more important, we discussed this about the management groups before, but it's really important to understand that you can define on the scope like management group, and all subscriptions that will be linked to these management groups will be configured, or we can configure it for some, let's say, standard one subscription. I'm assigned it to the tenant, so all machines inside all subscriptions will be configured. Exclusion, for example, we can put the exclusion like I don't want to configure with this one. This subscription will be it's enabled policy enabled parameters, because we are doing the configuration of the log analytics. The one log analytics that's required, it's no, this one, yeah. So this is our log analytics where we want to send the data from any machine, because all this subscription inside my tenant, it's not a problem that one machine will send the data to another machine, etc. And the most interesting part, it is remediation. So remediation means that policy will look on each machine. If these machines configured wrong, it should be changed. But to do this operation, log analytics or policy must have some permissions. And here, what I am doing right now, I am saying that yes, please create, or we can use the existing one, or I say please use the West Europe, and create their system assigned identity, and permission for this system assigned identity will be assigned like a log analytics contributor to do the changes for all systems. If I want to send some non-compliant information that for now these machines configured wrong, I can define some additional policy that I need. I can edit the message, etc. So all these messages will be included, and ta-da! We just create this initiative. Oops. Why? Failed to register. Cool. Because, okay, let's do another way. Select this. I will take this subscription only, because another one is decline it. Next one, space, yeah, but it should be here. Should be here. Identity, West Europe. System identity, log analytics contributor. Next, create. Yeah. Okay, so like I am assigning this role only to one. And let's see what's going on. Yeah, you're right. So like by the policy, we assigned that all machines in all subscriptions, but right now we have just only one subscription. All machines in this subscription that already exist or will be automatically configured with log analytics and send the data, right? So like if we look on the new machine, hope we will have a chance to see. It will not be configured immediately, but typically it's happening 5-15 minutes. It's still not configured. If you look on the SP2, you see that the system is already configured. Now, this step will be avoided by policy and configured by policy. To see what's going on, we can look on the assignment, this one. This is our assignment, what we exactly assigned it here. It is okay. And we can see the remediation steps. You see, there is remediation steps. It's still not running. Not yet, but about some time it will be run and executed by schedule, and system will configure all machines. Let's do this way. Let's take the Windows machine, just to have a faster demo. Deploy, configure the machine, Windows machine, and ask to remediate. And not yet. View remediation. Okay, let's do the reevaluate the resources and do West Europe. Auto remediate, you see a number of the counts, log analytics, extends, VM deploy. Okay, remediate. In progress. And evaluating. Okay. Still evaluating, but we have run out of time. Let's see. Here we will see the number of the resources that should be remediated. Still evaluating. Pending. Okay. But anyways, after some time, system reconfigure each machine and have it not yet like required parameters. You just need to understand and know the correct policy. For now, again, I'm demonstrating this log analytic extension like an old scenario because this policy will depreciate it in 2 years, because Microsoft is moving from the log analytics agents to Azure Monitor agents for now. Anyway, it will be the same from the log analytics perspective. Data will go anyway to the log analytics, but how it could be configured on each machine, it will be changed, and it will be new policy. You can see it's like right now on preview. Yeah, it's still pending. Come on. Show us at least some data. Yeah, it's not like a group policy in Windows that's working faster, but anyway, it works too. Pending. Questions? It was a demo. Because we totally run out of time, I have to drop now. Thank you for joining. You're welcome. Again, so you can use this QR code to get the another information, additional information about the monitoring and where you can find. And plus, you can contact me by this email. You always can join to my LinkedIn network. So, and you're welcome. Let's check at least last time what's going on there. It's still evaluating. Unfortunately, for this demo, it needs some additional time. But anyway, thank you for joining. And yeah, I wanted to say see you later, but it's final. Unfortunately, it is final webcast. But maybe we will have another series of webcast about the Azure monitoring, Azure infrastructure, Azure deployment. I have some ideas about sub automation and sub automation framework, how we can use it, etc. But it will be another series if you're interested in it, because one of my responsibility now is SAP and deployment, planning and deployment SAP in Azure. Maybe the next series will be exactly about SAP on Azure and how it works. And thank you, and see you later. And all of this other webcast of this series will be you will be able to find soon on the web